Welcome back, everybody, to the Quill and Query podcast. My name is Brandon Hall, and as always, I'm joined today by my wonderful co-host, Ash. Ash, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be back on Quill and Query. I know we've been gone for a little while.
Yep.
Sorry, everyone. Just that time of year where life is super busy for both Ash and I. So sometimes we just, for sure. Especially around this time of year, I feel like is when we're both just really busy all the time.
Yep. Agreed. I can't say anything else about that because I'll cry. Mama needs a break. Mama just needs a vacation.
Well, hopefully you can get one soon. We have a very special episode for you guys to kick off what's going to be season 3 of Quill and Query. We have a lot of fun things in store for season 3. But to start, we're going to be doing our long-awaited episode, I guess, where Ash and I talk about our works in progress. I know this is an episode we've talked about doing for a while and kind of just kept pushing it. So super excited to get into it, to hear more about A Filthy Hunger, because I've been loving the posts you do on Instagram about it. So super excited to hear more.
Same for you, because I know next to nothing about yours. We'll see what you reveal today.
I'm a very closed book with it. I'll get into like why I'm so secretive sometimes too, because I think that might be relevant. But yeah, definitely excited to share more today. I won't be as secretive as usual because I do want to share some things.
We'll take what we can get. How about that? Whatever you give us, we will receive very gladly. So.
All right. Well, Ash, it's been a while. So I know we're both super busy, like we said, but have you been reading anything lately?
I have. It's been a relatively okay reading month, I guess. I finished a big book for book club called All the Colors of the Dark. It was like over 600 pages.
Wow.
It was, I don't think we realized how big it was until we all started reading. And then we were like, oh, right, I forgot to tell the new folks that 400 pages is the cap. So let that one slide. But it was really good. It was a challenge, but in a good way, because it was just way outside my comfort zone and not just what I would pick up, but the style in which it was written. Very good. And then I'm currently working my way through The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I don't know if you've read it, but it's pretty good. It's like a Viking Norse mythology, but not quite, with its own fresh spin, and it's been pretty good so far. I'm unsure. I'm like 100 pages in, and I'm enjoying it. It is. I'm reaching for it, but I'm not quite sure if I like love it yet. There's a couple things that I'm like, interesting use of these words. So anyway, it's been good. What about you? Have you been reading anything?
That's cool. Yeah, I'm still working my way through the Age of Madness trilogy, nearly at the end of book 1 with A Little Hatred. So I'm trying to push myself through this trilogy before I read Abercrombie's newest book, The Devils. I don't know if you've seen it, I've been hearing like great things about that one, so it's really tempting to just like stop what I'm reading right now and go to that one. Which I very well might do, because I am like a big mood reader, and if I tap into that, I can like I'll probably blaze through it pretty quickly. So
I got my first Joe Abercrombie the other week.
I saw that.
You saw that, yeah. I don't know which one. Half a King. I don't know if you. I'm sure. Yeah. You've read that one?
I actually have not read that first series by him. No. So I'm actually when you do get to it, I would love to hear what you think of it, because I know he's mostly known, or more well known for First Loss. So I'm actually I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about that. Like I know it exists, but I've never heard like what the general consensus is or anything. So yeah, it'll be interesting, especially with like The Devils coming out, to see the trajectory of his writing career, because I think he wrote that quite early on. Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's Kate, yeah. I know I waved at you when you said hi, baby, but I'm considering myself baby as part of this duo as well. Yeah, okay, cool. Well, I will make sure that is next on my list, because you speak so highly of him, but it's also cool that you haven't read it, so I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely need to know if that's one I need to go back and read. John Gwynne is also on my like list of authors that I have not gotten to yet, but I know he's widely loved. So
yeah, it's he's reading pretty accessible, which is a hard. I'm going to close this actually now that I'm thinking it's getting a little too.
That's okay.
I'll just sweat in silence. Anyway, John Gwynne. Yeah, he reads really accessible, which is fun, especially for something that's like so Norse mythology heavy. I'm having to look up words to see what's what. There are a couple phrases, like he uses the phrase thought cage, like hyphenated thought cage, as like to describe like one's mind, like internal mind, like someone keeps getting trapped in their thought cage. And I know it's very reminiscent of like Viking Norse like epic poems. But it's a little jarring, and there are a couple instances that like that I'm like, it kind of takes me out of it for a second, and I have to be like, oh well. But yeah, otherwise enjoying it. It's fun. Trolls and magic and stuff in like a not pretty way, which is cool. Lots of blood, lots of gore, so like all the trigger warnings, but yeah,
very cool. All right. Well, we don't really have many podcast updates or indie releases to spotlight this week, so I'm just going to skip over those. Like I said, this is season 3 of Quill and Query, so we're going to try some new things. You'll probably notice over time some, hopefully, some tech improvements. Looking into some, but nothing to report yet. So with all that out of the way, Ash, I think we can just get right into our work in progress discussion. We have a lot of fun topics and questions for each other to go through. So I guess I'll kick us off and pose the first question to you.
Classic.
Yeah. So I'll start with the story pitch for both of us. We can kind of go through for those who haven't been following and don't know what we're working on. So tell us a little bit about A Filthy Hunger and just give us like the pitch for anyone who hasn't heard you talk about it yet.
Yeah, cool. So I will, for those who have been with us for a while, last year I went to like a little writers conference thing and I presented. I didn't have the transcript or like the full draft yet, but I just wanted to give a shot with the idea. And they usually say like keep it to like 3 to 4 sentences. So I will give my official like thing that I said. Yeah. So it's a reluctant princess of a violent monarchy must protect her people from a powerful religious sect or see her kingdom fall to tyranny. Meanwhile, a forsaken prince controlled by an unstable usurper must serve as a spy master or risk seeing his kind eradicated in a centuries-long war. 2 enemies forced into a tumultuous alliance, together they must decide if their kingdoms are worth saving. So it's a dual POV, dark high fantasy, high stakes, lots of magic, gods, monsters, some romance, but we don't really get to that until much later on in the story. So that is A Filthy Hunger.
Very cool. I wish I was nearly as practiced as that with my pitch. I haven't had to like pitch it verbally to anyone in a long time, so
it's a good practice
in advance. Yeah. So mine will not be nearly as eloquent as Ash's, but great job. That was really good. You can tell you put like a lot of work into that, and it's really really great.
Sorry, I'm making sure I have the AC turned down because it's again so hot up here. If I literally start sweating on the screen, please don't judge me for it. Anyway,
that's okay.
Yes,
I run hot too, so I sweat.
Yeah,
like
there's just like no airflow up here. Anyway,
yeah.
The Knight of Knives spiel, please. You have the floor.
So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet, just because, like I said, I'm not as practiced as Ash with pitching it verbally to people, and I probably should have practiced before this episode, but I did not have that that forethought. So yeah. So A Knight of Knives is a dark fantasy murder mystery. We follow what would be, I guess, the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Really, his name is Theron. After he fails to protect the king, so he's failed his sole duty, and we kind of just follow him trying to solve the king's murder and salvage his legacy while also dealing with some family troubles from the past. And it's very like tight-knit story. It all takes place in a single city. It's like Ash's, it's dark fantasy, high stakes. I consider myself to write more like low magic, so there's that as well. Like, you won't find any hard magic systems here, but that is my very poorly practiced pitch for Night of Knives.
Oh, that was great.
Short and sweet. Dark fantasy murder mystery is usually what I say to people, and if they want to know more, I send them the blurb that I have on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, you don't really see a lot of like dark fantasy murder mystery, especially with like, and I will ask follow-up questions later, but especially with like a low magic, like when I hear dark fantasy, I usually think like really high, like intense magic stuff. But to have a dark fantasy and a murder mystery with like magic not really being like the main key is like, it's very unique. So it's very cool.
Thanks. Yeah. It's been super fun to write, and that was kind of the thought process going into it too. As my debut was, I haven't read a lot of dark fantasy murder mysteries. There's a few, but it doesn't seem to be like an oversaturated subgenre, I guess, or market. Yeah. So it seemed like an area that I could write in without feeling like derivative of something that I've read, or falling into that trap that I think a lot of people worry about with their first book is that feeling derivative. And I think we'll touch on that a little later in one of our topics as well. But it just seemed like a fun idea to explore, and it's evolved a lot since the initial concept.
Yeah. Exciting.
Well, on the topic of our initial concept for our stories, what birthed the idea of A Filthy Hunger for you? Like, what made the story come to life in Ash's mind?
I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, so for those who have listened, you guys can just roll your eyes. But this concept started like well over a decade ago. I was in high school. It's my senior year of high school. And I was really I've always been into fae and magic and folklore. And the original story was about this girl from Ireland who finds like a hawk and then nurses it back to health. And then come to find out it's like a fae unseelie king. And in order to prove that she is like worthy to be his wife, kidnaps her and puts her on a quest to save the kingdom, essentially. And to keep her safe as safe as can be along the way, he sends his best general with him. And then obviously like the general and her fall in love instead, and they have to do all this stuff. So it was a very different story back then, as I'm sure yours has like had many iterations along the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as I got older, I just kept having this kind of like vision of a woman in my mind. And like, I already had the general, which ends up being Voltaire. He's like this kind of like burly, like grizzly, scarred guy with like a gentle heart deep, deep down. Very much Shrek-like, right? Like mean, with all like the soft spots of like patience and understanding. And then I had the young girl was like, I don't know, she felt a little too Mary Sue to me, but I wanted this woman who was like the reluctant princess, essentially, of like, there always seems to be a reluctant princess, but it's always like a reluctant princess who like doesn't know anything, and then after like a training montage becomes like the ultimate fighter.
Yeah.
And I was kind of tired of like reading those stories. This is roughly when like ACOTAR kind of like pre-popularity, but I was reading Sarah J. Maas along the way. Anyway, so yeah, it happened in a dream. Had the dream of the original story of the hawk and the girl, and then it kind of just like slowly morphed into like, okay, well, what if this person does this instead? And what if it's not cliche, but it's popular now. Back then, Seelie and Unseelie fae were not very popular. Holly Black was tapping into it, as were a couple of other like more underground indie female authors, but really wanted to pursue that. And then over time, it kind of just became less of like a fae human thing and more of like mixed god human blood, very like Roman and Northern European folklore-esque mixed together. This is a very long-winded explanation.
Oh, no.
But started in a dream, and then it kind of just, as I got older and refined the concept after reading more and more, just became kind of what it is today. And it's still, as you know, it changes
Yeah.
by the week sometimes.
Right. So I'm curious, has it evolved in any like really crazy and unexpected ways throughout, this decade or so of working on it? And
I think crazy in the way that I am pursuing. I've added a third POV, which is really annoying to myself, but it felt necessary.
Yeah.
So now, like, every 5th chapter, you get the bad guy's perspective, or one of the bad guys' perspective, and I think that just ties like the lore together better. But it shifted in the way that I'm biting off a lot for my first novel. But I'm excited to do that. It seems like a big pursuit for someone's first novel.
Yeah.
So I hope I do it justice in that way. But theme wise, definitely took like a way darker turn than its like kind of like original Inception.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when I'm like, do I need to go this dark? And not in a grim dark way, but in like a, I don't know, this seems necessary to tell the story, but yeesh, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it kind of feels relevant. But anyway, what about you? Where did A Knight of Knives come from? And because you know me, I can ramble on forever. So
Yeah,
it's your
it's all
turn,
good.
Brandon. Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's weird. Stories for me start as like very vague concepts, like something very simple. So our pirate captain can relate to this a bit because his favorite video game is Bloodborne. But playing through the Dark Souls franchise,
Yeah.
There's a common theme in all of them, and it's that like the people who were in charge of these great kingdoms were ultimately responsible for its downfall in some way or another, and then you're kind of going through the world after the fact. Like it's very post-apocalyptic medieval fantasy. So
right.
I initially the idea was to write a story from the perspective of like those kings and those and kind of their court of how things fell apart. So kind of like exploring the pre-game of Dark Souls, but like in my own world. And it just slowly evolved from there, in that like it's very far removed from that concept now, but it still kind of maintains the original idea of following the ruling class of people as society is crumbling. Specifically, we follow through the eyes of Theron, but he's a very high ranking official. So yeah, that's where it started. And then I was like, dark fantasy murder mystery. That's a good way I could do it. And then it's changed so much since then. It's really crazy how much I think my initial concepts changed to what like when I sit down to start writing something. Because it's almost, it gets like unrecognizable in some ways, and I think a lot of people might be surprised by that.
It's interesting, touching on the themes of like a kingdom kind of on the brink, because I think, I mean, that's definitely, both kingdoms and mine are both on the brink of like extinguishing each other or being the downfalls of everything. Hence choosing whether or not these ruling classes are even worth saving. But it sounds like you also touch on those themes of like how power can be so destructive, and almost in like a somewhat relevant like tyranny. Like what does tyranny do? Even to people that are within the circle, because yours is like a Kingsguard, Kara is like the princess next in line, and they're like seems like they're having to view or watch slowly like an erode or a rot from the inside kind of fall around them, which is unique. I don't think we get like bad kingdoms, but I don't know if we see a lot of fantasies that are like right before the fall, or we're watching it happen, and it's starting to happen before our characters kind of come into play. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I think that I like the way you put it, where you think about, are these institutions even worth saving? Because that's definitely something that like that Theron is going to struggle with a lot throughout the book. Is like he's dedicated his whole life to this regime, and so but now like you're uncovering things that make you question, was that all wasted? And like, is what I'm doing now the right thing? And it's a very fun like time period, like you said, like right before the fall to to explore, especially from that lens of people who are within like the institutions of power.
I personally really wanted to play with like power, and even if you're not, it's almost like what is the phrase, like you might not have a hand in it, but because you are a part of the class that is the problem, you are like guilty by association, right?
Gotcha.
And you benefit from whatever horrible things the people in charge are doing. So how much of it is like, oh, like I don't want to rock the boat, because I like my comfortable living.
Yeah.
But then you look out and you're like, is this the best? Yeah. So anyway, seems like we've got those check marked on our epic themes.
Yeah, for sure. That's interesting though. I like that we both kind of explore similar themes there.
Yeah. I think I got a little tired of like, and I will say this a lot, or I'll like reference the things that I got tired of reading because it kind of still feels that way. And I understand the reasoning, and I still to this day enjoy stories like this. But I felt in the genres I was reading, specifically like older YA or like young adult fantasy, it's getting kind of tired of the poor girl from the woods gets like either kidnapped or like brought into this world, and now she's having to navigate this new hierarchy or whatever. And I think that's why I really like V.E. Schwab, because many of her characters are like already in the area of power, and then they have to do something about that. So anyway, wanted to not be like, oh, she's just a poor girl that got kidnapped and whatever. Though kidnapping is still a theme in my book.
Yeah. I kind of feel a similar way. Although we read, or like I don't read a whole lot of romantasy, for example, but I think that's one of the reasons growing up that Martin resonated with me so much is he talked a lot about a lot of the fantasy that he read was about people striving like to achieve power in some way, like the lost heir to become the king or something.
Right.
And he wanted to go further and see, like, talk about, okay, well, what do you do then when you have that power and things like that. So I think that resonated with me for very similar reasons. It was just very different, and it went further with those themes than anything I had read up until that point.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, well, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here to tricky scenes in chapters. So I know there was a particular chapter number, I believe it was 9 for you, if I'm remembering correctly, but I know we've both had I know we've both had troubling sections in our book, in our work in progress, that have taken longer than we might have hoped. So tell us a little bit about some of that. Like, what would have been some of the most, without spoiling, of course, I know this is always difficult to navigate, but what has been like the most difficult thing for you to write, whether it's a chapter, a scene, or a character POV?
9 was a bitch to get through, and I'm at this point now where I'm like, just leave it, just leave it and move on, and just edit later. I'm really trying to work on that. I'm currently, and I think this question comes up as well, but I'm in just like the pure drafting phase now. I like was trying to draft and then write each chapter as I drafted the outline, and after many a month of therapy and realizing this was not the way that I needed to be writing, have been really just heavily working on outline. Life has gotten in the way these last 2 months. We've had many visitors, lots of family, work, and just whatever. So I have been less successful in moving as quickly as I've wanted. However, Baltar, my main male character, is the closest to me in personality and the hardest to write. and I know I've said this before, but with Kara, her politics are so much more, I feel more well versed based off of what I've read and the things that I've watched and learned about like just general kind of monarchy, history wise. With Baltair, there are some similar familiar threads, but I don't know what it's like to be a spy master. And I don't know, I like don't want it to be this kind of, and I keep shitting on Sarah J. Maas. I enjoy reading her. But there's a character in her book series who is a spy master, and you don't get he's very mysterious and you don't really know much about him. And I think that's kind of purposeful because like the business of being a spy master is so messy. And Martin did it well with berries, right? Yeah. And he was always so good at it. And anytime I read something with him in it, I was like, how is he like getting here politically? Like, how are you? I'm the writer. Like, I should know all of the answers, and I don't, because I'm writing from this guy who's trying to navigate, like, he's thrust into being a spy master because he doesn't want to lose his life, but he's also new to the game, and the game board has changed now because of this big surprise that he's like, I had no idea this was going to happen, even from what I knew. So, in that way, like, there is, like, mystery involved, like, why is this happening, like, but he's the hardest because I want it to read believable, even though we are in this kind of like hyper fantasy, like we've got creatures and sprites and all this kind of stuff. And that is truly the hardest for me. So I've literally like it's so delayed in the mail, but I bought The Art of War. And I'm
I have that over there.
So it's like it's been delayed by over a week. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy it from Amazon at this point, I guess, because I'm like tired of waiting. But I'm trying to learn more about that in order to make it believable. So while he's a easy character to write because I'm so tapped into like who he is, his position is really, really challenging. And the politics of it all is challenging. And also, the second hardest thing is like, I'm such a history lore person, but I'm having a hard time with timeline. Pre when our characters come into view of like, okay, who's like Car's great-great-grandfather? Okay, but if that happened in this year and this happens in this year. Anyway, I'm having trouble with that. So that's been so far the toughest.
Yeah, like the consistency of the history and stuff, is that?
Yeah, like making sure that when this isn't really a spoiler, but there's like one of the big issues that Baltair finds 3 sets of the same map of the castle that Kara lives in, and there's a door that vanishes in the blueprints, and the door vanishes at the same time this other big event happens, and he's suspicious that the king is like thinking that there's something being hidden in the castle. It's very vague, but it's a big kind of turning point at the beginning of the book where it's like, oh, there's like something bigger going on. But the dates have to align in a timeline that I'm not quite sure of yet. So, and then later in the chapter, he goes to talk to the seer who knows everything up until... Anyway, so it's just like many webs of timelines, and I don't want to look a fool in my first draft.
I think...
someone be like, that doesn't match, so...
I think we're all afraid of those like inconsistencies and not catching all of them. Especially when it comes to like the bigger plot points. I know Martin is famous for he has a horse that changes color and sex between books, apparently.
Really?
So he's
that's so funny.
I think readers caught it in like book 2, and then since then he's just leaned into it to where when he's asked about it, he says it's just a magical sex changing horse or so. I don't. It's like it's very interesting.
I kind of like that. It's just like, oh shit! Especially with like such like a multi-plot, like complex book like that. You're kind of like, all right, you get a sexless horse. That's What about you? Have you struggled with anything in particular?
Yeah, for me, I think I've shared a little bit about it. Act 2 has been like extremely difficult to write for some reason. And I haven't really ever nailed down why. It's just been the most challenging part of the book to write. Like I have most of Act 1 written. I have since finishing Act 1, I have since gone back to my outline and like tried to rework Act 2 and see if that might be where things are kind of falling apart. And I think that might be where it is. It might be more of like a structural thing, just because I have a lot of things that need to happen in Act 2, and kind of like you said, making sure the timelines align and that things are happening in the right order and like believably so, but not too fast. And also like, so the pacing is also something I worry about. Like, is this taking too long? Is it happening quick enough? Because I feel like Act 1 is paced pretty well, and I don't want to change a whole lot of that yet until I go back to like edit and stuff. But I don't really go back and rewrite a lot in Act 1 anymore. It's Act 2 that I like either sit and stare at the screen or I'm rewriting. Like I make very little new progress on it lately. So yeah, I'm still trying to get into the draft, but a lot of my focus has been more on the outlining part, just because of many factors, like I just said. Because then when also it comes to Act 3, I feel like that's pretty good. Like I'm happy with where that's at. It's weird how I've outlined it. I've like outlined Act 1. I did outline Act 2 and Act 3, but I'm reworking Act 2, but I'm like not touching the other parts right now.
I think I'm very much similar to you in the way I know what needs to happen on the bookends of Act 1 and Act 3, right? Like, but it's the middle, because I don't know if you feel this way, but Act 1, you're obviously like establishing the characters and setting up the world building, and the world building is going to continue all throughout, but there's this weird middle ground where like obviously some heightened thing needs to happen, or a couple of things to kind of keep the energy going, but there's, at least for me, there's a lot of like filler, right? Because we're establishing character relationships through action, but you also don't want to bombard the middle with too much muck, and then it be like no one can catch their breath. And because I've read novels like that where it's like, oh, I love we're establishing, and then it just kind of goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and there's no break. And then by the time it ends, and you're like, okay, I don't think I like know these characters very well, because they've just been like thrown into it. I don't know. That's what I face, is like, there has to be some downtime, but it still has to move the plot forward. So how do you handle this downtime in a world that like there's just so much going on?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think like especially when you have such high stakes, it's almost like, how do you find downtime? It's like we're trying to prevent the collapse of a kingdom here, so it's like where's the downtime in here? And so you don't want it to like move too slow and feel too filler, but you don't want things to just keep escalating to the point where like readers aren't having a chance to breathe and get to know the characters well enough. So I think that's the struggle, is just on top of all the other things I mentioned, is finding that balance, because I think it's a lot easier to do in Act 1 and 3, because you have a clearer purpose almost. Like you need to, with Act 3, you're wrapping up and setting up for the next book. And then Act 1 is the introduction of everything. So you have a lot more to work with, I feel like, there as well.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. It's the struggle. It's almost like, to me, the middle, like part 2, is very reminiscent of like the second book slump that a lot of authors get caught in, where it's like, okay, this is like taking way too long, but it's a fine balance. And for newbies like us, it can be hard. It's almost like I need to follow the advice that I keep hearing and also give to other people, is like, just write and it'll eventually work itself out. But when you're in the outlining stage, I feel like there's almost more pressure to get it right the first time or second time than there is anything else. So anyway, glad we're on the same same middle of the first book having trouble, because it's brutal out there.
Well, I think we kind of touched on this next question a little bit, but it sounds like you're currently writing in the Act 2 area, or you're actually in the outlining phase still. Sorry. Okay.
So I'm currently working through part 1. I'm like, again, very behind, but I'm just gonna give myself grace. It's something that I think about like on the daily, which is good. Like I'm I'm always like, God, I wish I could write right now. And I've been practicing waking up earlier and earlier every day so that I can start to do that.
Very cool.
Anyway, yeah, I'm currently still working my way through part 1. I'm a hyper detailed outliner, I've realized, which will help me, I know for a fact, when I actually start writing.
Yeah.
So it's almost like my outline isn't just like point 1, so and so does this. It's like so and so is feeling frustrated as he walks through whatever. This person enters. This is how they're looking and feeling. It's like so it's just taking me a long time because I know for a fact that when I go to translate it into writing, it's gonna just kind of fly, which feels good, but also it just takes forever. So yeah, still working through part 1. I'm halfway through part. How many? What am I on? I'm on chapter 13, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it's taking some time. Where are you at? You're still on part 2, just your outlining part 2.
Yeah, I'm mostly just reworking the outline for Act 2 still right now. I just really want that to be in a strong place, at least to the level that I feel Act 1 and 3 are, just because I feel like Act 2 is not there yet. Like, I really am happy with how I plan to end things. I'm happy with how I like kick things off. Yeah. It's just that middle part that's, like you said, the second book slump, but in one book. So and it does help with the outlining, I think, like when you are being more detailed, and to remember that that's just taking some of the work that you would have had to do during writing away. Like I've heard other writers phrase it that way, where it's how detailed your outline is just how much work you're doing up front as opposed to doing it like in editing later. So because
I'm a sometimes front loader, I think.
Yeah, sometimes I fall into the mindset of like, oh, this is just the outline though. Like I got to write, and so that it's helpful to shift it to that perspective. All right, well, we touched a little bit on our characters, but I kind of want to dive into them a little more here. So your story is a dual POV with the occasional third thrown in as well. So tell us a little bit more about them. I know we dove into this. I don't know how much more you can reveal about them, but and any other cast members that readers can look forward to meeting in A Filthy Hunger.
Yeah, so Baltar was always kind of already there, as I mentioned. Like a bar guest is like one of my favorite like folklore creature. It's like a big bear-like wolf that just hunts. So he originally turned into that, no longer, but there is a bar guest that makes an appearance, so that's always fun. Then there's Kara, who, love her. She's kind of like the haughty mean girl that everyone wants to be friends with because she's actually really nice, but court can do mean things to people. She's had to survive, which is what I wanted to like really play into, was like kind of like the gilded cage is still a cage mentality of she just can't be who she wants to be, and very reminiscent of many queer people too, in that vein of, well, like I wanted to play into that a little bit. But yeah, they're kind of opposites of the same coin, which I wanted them kind of like fire and water, but together are great together. I love a good side character, so I've been focusing on my posts on Instagram, a lot of the side characters, which I always find to be really fun. So like the best friends, Donald and Isla, also wanted them to be kind of like, I wanted them to be like what my friends are to me, or my, boyfriend, who are always like mirrors of just like, hey, you're doing this thing that isn't okay. Like, look at yourself. This isn't, I didn't want yes people throughout the story. I also, I like really wanted it to feel full, I guess, is the whole point. Is like, you fall in love with these side characters and they're really important to the main characters, but they're not just there for like plot. They're there to be extensions of the main characters. We have a couple like fun. Elspeth is like the queen of the Errol, which is like Baltair's queen. Complicated relationship. She's fun. She's like everyone's favorite like mean girl, like truly a mean girl, but we love a mean girl. Yeah, I wanted there to also be like some pretty bad villains. Like I didn't want it to be kind of like stereotypical, but I wanted there to be this kind of sense of like religion plays a huge part in the story itself. So I wanted the characters that are the bad guys to feel bad, like evil, kind of in the way that Voldemort is evil. Like there is no redeeming quality about anyone that is a bad person in my novels. Like
Yeah.
my characters are very morally gray in many instances, as are the side characters. They have to do hard things that go against their morals, sometimes for the greater good. But I wanted the greater good to be very obvious in comparison to these like very evil gods that are disguised as benevolent.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun to play into because I have quite a few big bads. I have the ultimate big bad, and then I have like different tiers of
Yeah.
bad. And then there's like a secret baddie that doesn't come in until the end of book 1. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually really like the what you said about you want the like the villains to just be evil, like very obviously.
No redeeming.
Yeah, I actually like that because I think we've shifted away from stories that do that. Like lately, I feel like storytelling, the trend has been redeemable villains for a long time now. So it is refreshing to get something like that once in a while, where it is, no, this is pretty bad. So that's super exciting.
You're right. It doesn't really get played into very. We're in the morally gray phase, which I love. Like I really love those themes definitely. Of playing around with like, there is like a person potentially behind this awful person, like a humanity, but at least in my world, they're all like they're not human, and so how do you? There's no redeeming quality for a human or a non-human in this kind of concept.
Yeah, both definitely work. Obviously we both like stories of that use both. I just think it's nice when like the market has shifted towards one thing to kind of see something else. That's totally. Either whether it's a little more in line with like traditional more black and white morals, or it has a mix of the moral complexity and the black and white, which sounds like is what you're going with.
Yeah, for sure. How about you? Talk to us about your characters. It can't just be your main, right? We've got to have a whole cast if it's a murder mystery.
Yeah, for sure. There's I've spent a long time building out the cast because when the story initially came to me, I had to fill in the suspects and all the other characters and stuff that were going to be here, and then the motives and things like that. Because, like I said, it starts off as a very vague idea for me. But yeah, it's been really fun. Like I think people are gonna really like the court, like the counselors and just the different members of like the royal family and stuff that you're gonna meet. All very, very fun, very different, and they all have their own hidden agendas and motives. One thing that's always been like a big inspiration for me when writing these characters that are in these institutions of power is the small council scenes from Game of Thrones. So because there are a lot of like council meetings, so that has been a huge source of inspiration. So if you like that kind of those scheming politicians, you'll get a lot of those for sure. And yeah, there's a lot of family in the book too. Like Theron has a daughter that he doesn't have the greatest relationship with, and you'll learn more about why, and you'll explore their relationship there. And then same with like the royal family, because what's a royal family without drama? So
of course
they're also like there's a lot of related characters, blood related, and then like I said, the council, and then there's, as we get into like the lower tiers of the city, there's some less savory characters that you'll get to meet that are also really fun to write. So yeah, I tried to have a variety of people to write from like different walks of life and different motives. But yeah, I think I kind of rambled a little bit there, but yeah.
No, that was great. I guess I had a follow-up question. So any of the characters come to you like organically, like very much like Zeus being, or Athena being pulled out of
Yeah.
her dad's skull, or like did they come with the story idea? Like, did story come first and then character, and then weaving yourself into this? Like, or is there anyone from real life that kind of played a part in who you created?
Yeah, well, when it comes to like the family dynamics, definitely drew a lot of inspiration there. In some ways, like I don't want to give the wrong message that my family is the same as as
but you're
the
very
families
close
I'm
with your
writing.
family,
But yeah,
right?
yeah. So drawing from that experience, and then I did end up filling in, like I said, a lot of the characters like came after the initial idea. Like I had, usually for me, I have like a general cast of main characters that's really small that come with that initial vague idea of the story, and then it just sort of gets fleshed out from there. So like that's when the side characters will start to fill in my head, and I'll think of what are we missing, like who else needs to be here, and why, like what role are they going to fulfill in the story. But yeah, Theron, his daughter, and then like some of the initial council members that you'll meet were there from the beginning, but there was also a lot of the second option where they came in after the fact because there's a specific role that I need some of these people to fill in the story.
Right. Yeah, it's like you have like a grocery store and you need employees and you're like, all right, you do this, you do that.
Yeah.
Is there a character that you love to write the most?
I like all of them, if that's an acceptable answer, because if I'm not liking a character, like writing a character, then it's usually because something's not working, I feel like. There are some that are like they're challenging to write, but I still enjoy writing them, so it's not that I'm just choosing like characters that are easy to write. It's
right.
But there's never been, like, so far there hasn't been a character that I've been like, I just really don't want to write that person right now. Like maybe if like my mood is like more in one POV than the other, then I'll shift. But no, there's not been like a character that I just flat out didn't enjoy writing and found to be like a slog or anything, thankfully. Now that might change as we get more into Act 2, but how about you? Is there anyone that you're just like never looking forward to writing from?
No, aside from Baltar just being like generally challenging because of the aforementioned reasons, I really enjoy writing all of mine. I think I've got like a fun, weird cast of characters. I think the Elspeth, the queen, is the most fun to write because I'm not like, I mean, people might disagree with me. I'm not like an asshole or a bitch in real life. Like, I'm very much like, I aim to please, and I want everyone to be in a good mood and don't want to rock the boat, and she is the complete opposite. So it is fun whenever she makes an entrance. She has a very significant part in the story, especially like in later books, but she's really fun. She's just like, I get to kind of flex. If I'm having like a really sassy day, I'm like, let me just like write a scene with her in it because it's a little cathartic. So.
It's a perfect outlet.
Yeah. And then there's like Baltar has like it's not a servant, but someone that's been with his family forever that kind of like helps him out, and his name is Beg, and he's an imp, and he's like this gross looking like creature and always gives like sassy like slimy marks and stuff,
Yeah.
So it's always fun when you can kind of like sprinkle a bit of like I don't know, peanut gallery commentary in between very serious events, and you just kind of like look at this guy being like, what did you just, I can't believe you just said that. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are fun, right?
That's very cool. I'm eager to learn more about that character now.
Yeah, he's so fun. He's like,
sounds delightful.
He's in chapter 1. He's in most chapters. He's like he's an indispensable asset. Yeah, he's kind of like the old wise man that always just like gives his input, but then you don't want it.
Yeah.
Anytime he's actually giving it, you're like, okay.
That's perfect.
Also, you're being mean to me. Why are you being mean to me right now? Anyway, yeah.
That sounds perfect. I think we've touched on this a little bit in some of our previous episodes, albeit briefly. So mostly for those who are probably new to this information. What is like your overall vision for the world of A Filthy Hunger? Do you want to write? I know you want to write multiple books. But like, what's your overall vision and goal? Like when it comes to the number of books and how many stories you want to tell in this world?
Yeah. Since we've had the discussion about creating a world in which you can revisit at different times, that's really kind of opened my eyes. And I've always felt like I've been pretty limited in my worldview of what I want a Filthy Hunger. The overarching series is called The Book of Witnesses. And the first one is A Filthy Hunger. And I think I'm going to keep the theme of like hunger and violence throughout in terms of names. But it was a really good kind of like different perspective. So it's been on my mind as something to maybe like can do some cool prequels when things like are different or later on in the future. The series is gonna end how it ends. I don't have any like grand scheme for like a 6-7 book kind of thing. I'd like it at a solid 3-4 maybe if the first one gets picked up and I have some guidance, because it's hard when you're starting out, in my opinion, to think that big. I mean, you do. I do. I have like very lofty ideas of what I can do with these characters, but in a way that makes practical sense. It's kind of daunting to think about. So for right now, it's three thickums. And I think a novella for 2 characters specifically would be really fun. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But yeah, the other week or the other month, it was a really good kind of eye-opening, like, oh, it doesn't just have to end here if we don't want to. It's hard to say goodbye to your original, your
original baby. And sometimes, like, I feel like the intimidation factor of having to create a whole new world and all of this like background can be a little daunting when you've already done that and like poured your heart into an existing world.
Yeah. I have a couple other good like novel ideas as well that I want to turn into series. So I think for now I'm never going to shut the door on the world that I've built because I love it too much and I put too much time and energy into it. But I think with Kara and Baltair's story, it's going to just be this very nicely wrapped kind of here we are. There's no like maybe at the end. It's kind of very final in my mind for now. But allowing the world to extend past them, I think is a really fun potential. Yeah. What about you? You kind of have that mindset where it's like, oh, you could work in the future and in the past, right? Like it's kind of where you're at.
Yeah, kind of similar mindset of what you said, where the characters we're following in the books that I have planned, their story it's not going to be open ended. Like it's not, that won't continue. But there's definitely room for like future stories or past stories. I do have a couple ideas for like standalone prequels for certain characters. So they're, cool. I guess, spin-offs, prequels. I say prequel because it would take place before A Night of Knives. But that some of those depend on like how much people like certain characters too. So but yeah, right now there's one that I think people will like, and so I kind of have an idea for how we could like tap into that and show more of him if people want it. So but it's a story that's like already in A Night of Knives that you like hear this legend, or like I'm trying to be very vague here, but you hear stories of this character's accomplishments, but you don't really get the full picture. So it's kind of like more like exploring things like that. But yeah, my current vision is 3 books for like this story for Theron's story. Now it could be 2. But I go back and forth between 2 and 3 all the time. But I think I just really like trilogies. I think they're great, especially for like if you're new to structuring a long story like that. I think it's very hard to go wrong with a trilogy structure, like a 3-book plan. So that's my my goal. I don't want to throw any weird numbers in there where it's like 5 or 6 books, and then I don't know how to pace and structure that many. Yeah.
Like, no, I just, yeah, that's always my thing too. I always feel like this is kind of like a side tangent. I feel like sometimes I'm just like so predictable with like what I want to happen. Not in the way that it'll be delivered, because I hope to be kind of unique in that way. But like, yeah, it is like kind of just the typical hero's journey concept. So I worry about if I went too far, like I'm gonna like run out of like doable ideas that work within the framework I've built. It's like going too far-fetched here, and I don't want that to happen. Or it get boring.
Yeah, my worry is that it's gonna feel like a side quest if I do like if I would do like 5 books. So okay, book 3 and 4 just feel like we're off doing something else.
Yeah. Sarah J. Maas did that. She did in the Throne of Glass series. She did like the first 2, and then she did a novella about, and it's like a prequel. And then there's like the 4th, and then the 5th, and then there's like a 6th that's also happening at the same time as the 5th. Anyway, but it's a side character's like story. So it's kind of all over the place. It works, but you could always, I mean, I know some people do that. They go like, oh, like we're going to pause the story and focus on someone else real quick. But I'm also like, I have too many perspectives already. I can't. I can't add it another.
Yeah.
Not yet, for anyway.
Sure. All right. Well, I think we touched a little bit on like how we're both exploring the institutions of power and how people grapple with their role in that. But what other themes are you hoping to touch on in A Filthy Hunger that you want people to know about?
I'm not really good at like themes. I mean, I know what they are, but to me, it's always just been about the reluctance of power and like having no choice in what you have to do. And that kind of stems from my own personal like history, I think, of just what was expected of you versus what you actually chose to do. And in my real life, the cost was not that severe. But I've always thought, like, what if it was, right? Like, what if, you were supposed to be this person, but it's just not something you want to do. But the stakes are so high that if you don't do it, what happens? So I wanted that. Like the themes of like tyranny and injustice, I think. And most of all, kind of like the stories that we tell ourselves. As a history person, the phrase, history is always written by the winners, is kind of like where I've aligned myself in this story, because when our 2 characters come together, they realize, oh shit, maybe we've been told a few lies, and how far do these lies go? So it's like 2 heads of the same beast kind of thing. So anyway, I wanted to like, it really mostly just power, like themes of power, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And what do you do when you don't have like a choice? And the choices you make impact, millions of people. I knew those were like a lot, but yeah I think in my world, there's like, the magic system isn't that complicated, but you have these creatures that are kind of like organically from the land that have nothing to do with what happened in like the ether or whatever. And they have been, kind of subdued and sidelined. And that's also a topic that I enjoy, kind of, and a theme I enjoy touching on is like, sorry, I'm kind of like going off on a tangent.
Oh no, it's all good.
Yeah, the people that get lost along the way, and when you really need them, will they be there? So anyway, that's it.
Yeah, those all sound great though. I know you said you're not really a themes person, but I get what you're saying, and those all sound like really great to explore in a fantasy setting too.
Yeah, I'm not good with like the one word themes or like you know what I mean? Like
I know what you mean. Yeah. I knew what you were trying to communicate. Like it makes sense because it can be difficult to put something like as I feel like as abstract or as complex as a theme into a single word or phrase. Because
maybe I need to work on that. I'm just like, here are my themes.
Yeah, and it's difficult too because when you do put it in like a single word or anything, it can mean a lot of different things to like different power. People. Yeah, like what does that mean? So many things with power. What does that mean? Yeah. What about you? Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I was thinking about this question, I was putting them into single words. So I'm going to do that and be vague.
Do it.
A lot of the, we've touched on the power and how, we've dived into that a little more detailed. So I'll skip over that. But a lot of the themes I want to touch on are things like regret and legacy and things that you can kind of see how they're going to tie into Theron as a character. Like he's an older guy, but he's a little past his prime, but he's still working. So, but he's going to have to deal with his legacy throughout the book, and that's ultimately what he's trying to salvage. But then, like we touched on, is this even worth it? And all the things he sacrificed along the way. And then there's regret that comes kind of naturally from that. And just we touched a lot on like the bigger themes, I think, in the beginning, but with Theron specifically as a character, those have always been at the core of when I'm writing him, what I want readers to kind of take away.
Yeah. See, much better at the themes than I am. Maybe that'll be a good writing challenge for me to just like try and come up with one word.
Yeah, it's challenging for sure. Like
it's challenging. I'm long-winded at best, as you know. So
that's why we do long form podcasts. So
that's right, exactly. I like to talk too much.
All right. Well, I think you had a follow up for the themes, right?
Yeah. Are there any that you like refuse to touch on, or excuse me, sorry, Mira woke up.
Oh, it's all right.
Or any that you're worried about exploring?
That's an interesting one. I haven't really thought about it like that. But there are some that like I worry about touching on. Just because I worry, like, can I do this justice, or is this going to feel like something that's already been done before? Like, am I adding anything to this takeaway that I want readers to have? Because that's something that's really important to me. Like when I'm writing A Knight of Knives, and just when I think about any story, is I don't necessarily just want readers to take away like the same thing they can take away from any other book, or give them the same. I want to tell a story that's like uniquely mine, and that has its unique takeaways. And if there's been a lot of themes and like that I've thought about that I don't know if I can add much to the conversation on. Like there's been a lot with how I deal with like religion in the book, and it's initially it was going back and forth between like having a bigger role and playing a more of a backseat. And it's what I worry about with like tackling religion is not like backlash or anything. It's more so I don't know if I have anything new to say here that hasn't already been said. So like when there are themes that I'm kind of debating on like how I'm going to implement them into the story, it's a lot of that. Like, do I have anything new to say here?
Do you think you have to say something new?
If you're
telling a story that's uniquely yours, isn't that adding something new regardless?
Yeah, that is that's a good way to think about it. I feel like I have put that pressure on myself of I need to say something new, or at least something. If obviously I feel like when I say something new, everyone's probably said some of what I'm thinking to some degree. So it's more like how many people have said something along these lines. Like how common is this message? And like if it's something that I feel has already been done and maybe done better or done well by many other authors, then I start to feel like more I want to steer clear of it. Not all the time, but just a little bit. And so I've definitely put that pressure of like I want to try to say something new if I can. Yeah. But
see, I think I do the same thing. But I'm trying to follow like the mindset of like this is a unique story because I'm telling it and it's been in my mind and no one has access to it. But we keep telling ourselves the same story as like a species, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because I think they will always be relevant. That's something that I had a hard time this week. I like did like a short story challenge or like a writing challenge, and I didn't get anywhere close to the top 10, which is fine because they had like 1,500 applicants. But when they announced the winners, all of these ideas were so unique and so amazingly, like, how I read it as fresh. And hi, Nicole.
Hey, Nicole. How's it going?
It made me feel really low. I was like, oh my God, my stuff is so boring. Like, I'm boring, and you start to kind of spiral. But then I just had to stop myself and be like, you know what? Even if it is boring, even if only a few people write it, this goes back to like, why do we write? Or why do we want to do this? Is like, because it is a story that only we can tell. And even if it is kind of cookie cutter in many ways, people like it. People like, that's why I stay very much in the same genre pretty much all the time, is because I like to reread the same story told from very different, unique perspectives and forms. So I don't know, trying to give us a little bit of like a pep talk when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of truth to that I think is difficult for writers to accept, that like your story can only be so original and unique. We have thousands of years of human history behind us, so lots of this has been done before. But you are right in that you are the only person who can tell your story. Like no one else has thought of A Filthy Hunger. And it's interesting to me when you say do you feel that way about A Filthy Hunger? Like, do you feel like this is boring and this is not original, or was that more for the short story that you were writing?
Sometimes I feel like, that it is. I don't think boring is the right word for like A Filthy Hunger, but like, like kind of already done, like you were saying. Sometimes I definitely feel that way. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I keeping myself in a box by limiting myself to this genre? And like, blah, blah. Like, I go through all those moments because sometimes, as much as I love my characters and I love like the journey they're about to be on, I'm like, but it is kind of like, like, this has been done before. I'm not trying to come with like a different thing, right? Like, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? But I am trying to like maybe create some characters that no one's really seen before in these situations, and that might be exciting to people. But sometimes I feel like I'm like, is this too normal?
Well, the reason I asked that was just because I was going to say something that I think you might agree with, that it helps to get other perspectives on that as well, like on whether what you're writing feels like really derivative or not. Because when I hear like when I see your stuff about A Filthy Hunger, I can't think of anything I've read like it. So, but I know like when we're looking at our own works, we're conscious of all the influences and stuff that are going into it. So I wonder if that plays a big role in that.
We do. I think we often don't see the forest for the trees sometimes. Like, we're way too in the muck and mire of everything, that at least for me personally, and I'm so worried about every nuance and every detail and like, can't miss this, the timeline, the whatever, that I have to take a step back and like, I don't know, I think I've got a cool story. I think it's fun. I mean, even last year when I went to that thing, they were like, this is cool, we would like to read this. So it's like, I have to kind of revert back to that and be like, you wanted to do this so you can feel insecure, but you can only feel insecure for so long, and then you have to just kind of fucking do it.
Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to tell myself, at least.
Yeah, it's good that you're able to do that. I know that's a struggle for a lot of creatives, is like to admit that. Because we are very self-critical, but you also do have to be honest with yourself when you like when you're proud of something. So
yeah, exactly.
Nicole says, I saw something that said your story may not be original, but every story is unique. Yes, that's very true.
It's great advice. Nicole, always coming in with a wise word of wisdom.
Yeah. Also, Nicole, it's not your fault that you were late. We did skip an episode, so we probably threw you off a little bit. So
it's all good. We're back. back, baby.
All right. Well, we have a few more questions, but I'll let you pick the next question since I've been going through the list. I'll let you pick since I think we're getting close to our time here.
Yeah. I really like your just visiting question, so I'm going to go with that. Okay. If you could visit one location from your work in progress, where would you go and what would you do there?
This is such a terrible question for my story, and I don't know why I put it in it because my story takes place in one. It takes place in one city, so it's like, what district of the village of the main city do I?
That you'd be like, yo, I want to go party at this tavern.
Well, there is a tavern, but I don't know that I'd want to be there. I mean, there's a few taverns, but like the one that I'm thinking of that's most prominent is not. It's probably not a place you want to frequent. Yeah, it's,
okay, got it.
But so there's like, I forget the exact number. It's escaping me, but there's a certain number of districts in the city, and they're all kind of. It's kind of stereotypical in the way that like the higher up you go, the higher class and like nicer it is, and then the lower in the city.
Yeah, that's very like historical. I mean,
yeah. So. There is one district that's like very green and there's lots of gardens. I call it right now. This might change, but it's the Roseway. I like that place a lot. Ooh, so I would go. I would go there. Out of all the places in the city, that's probably the nicest place you can go.
Yeah. I've got one too like that. It's called the High Crest because it's on the top, like overlooking.
Very nice. Oh, that sounds nice. So is that where you would go then? No. Where would Ash be visiting in A Filthy Hunger?
I think so. Baltair is from Inith, which is like kind of a northeastern over the mountains country. It's the other country. They're at war with each other. And where he is from is like the capital. And there's this massive, it's like a mini mountain, I guess. It's called the Underhill. And there's this really ancient tree that kind of like has made all these honeycombs underneath the ground. And that's kind of where we start the story with him is like, there's a city around it, but that's kind of where the king is. And I think it'd be so cool to like, live and go hang out and like walk around this like underground city that follows this like massive tree.
Yeah.
The roots go down, and I kind of wanted to give like a little bit of like a allusion to the Fae. The Unseelie court's usually underground, and like in Irish Fae mythology, fairies are underground also. But these are like big, like the Errol are bigger than, because they're half gods, half human. So they're like bigger. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool to like walk in this big cavern that's underground. So that's where I would visit.
Very nice. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I limited myself with that question because I was confined to a single city. So.
What is your city called? Are you allowed to reveal that?
Yeah, it's I think it's in my blurb. It's Valethria, so it's I don't know where I was going with that. That's the name of the city. Yeah, and there's several districts, like I said, and some safer than others for sure. So.
Yeah, that's kind of how mine is too. Mine's like broken up by, there are like the 4 gods that are, anyway, whatever. I won't say anything about that. But 4 gods in each of the hills around like the crest.
Okay.
Where the king is are named after each of the gods, and like each
very cool
of the hills is like a different, like there's like the poor district, then there's like the blacksmiths and stuff, then just like normal people, and then the scholars and judges, so they have their own thing. You gotta break it up into like areas, obviously.
It's
gotta be
it's just it's easier to work with too. Yeah.
It is, and it's just traditionally how we work, right? Like we like put ourselves in little pockets and groups of people. So
all right, I think I'll pick maybe this one for you. Want to do this one as our last one, or
sure?
Okay. I'm gonna pick Don't Tell. This is another fun one. So which character in A Filthy Hunger would you trust with your deepest secrets?
All right, well, you answer yours first.
Okay.
Because I have to think about this one.
Okay, I'm thinking between 2 characters. We're going with either. I'll just say them both because I didn't even mention this other character yet. He is also a spy master. He's in the story. So we're gonna go with either Theron, the main character, because he's very honorable, very like Ned Stark type guy. So you can trust him to take your secret to the grave. And then I'm iffy on the Spy Master Percival if he is trustworthy or not. Because he is the Spy Master, so he knows everybody's secrets, but he is very cunning, so he may use that to his advantage at some point. So yeah, it's I think we're gonna go with Theron, just because that honorable type I feel like pretty safe with. So
got it. That's makes sense. Honor. Oh, excuse me.
It's all good.
Yeah, this was a hard one because I have so many like side characters and sidekicks and stuff. I think I would have to go with Baltair only because he is a spy master and he is he only talks to the people that he actually likes, which are like 2 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's also like, I would have drinks with Kara and I would like have a yap sesh with her because she's like very fun in that regard. But yeah, and she's also super trustworthy, but she's like out to protect herself. So if it interfered with her being able to survive, I don't think she would keep that a secret. Depending on what it was. So yeah, 2 main characters. That sounds really cliche, but
yeah, I know I did have to think about it for a minute though. It was an interesting thought exercise for sure.
That's the thing about this, like mine as well, and I'm sure you kind of experience this, like especially like the mystery of it all, and like there is like mystery in mine too, like a little bit of that kind of subplot. I'm just like, I don't know, everyone's out to like protect their own neck, so like as honorable as these 2 characters are, that only goes so far, and how far does that go is always fun to answer. Now, if I were to be somebody in this world that I have created, I would not live very long. I don't think I would survive. I'm too nice. I'm too trusting. So yeah, I just don't think that would happen. Do you think you could survive in yours?
It depends on my choices. If I could just like, if I'm allowed to just sail away from the city that the story takes place, can I just sail to one of the less fleshed out countries that I have on
right, exactly. Yeah.
If I was forced to like go through like the narrative that I've written, probably not. But
yeah, I don't think I'd make it at all. That's also another thing. We didn't really talk about other countries. Are there other countries involved? Because I've got 2, but then I've got like a bunch of others that kind of eventually come into play in like the later like books.
Yeah. There's so there are a few. You get a little bit of a look at the international politics and relations of like the main country that we're in, because the big thing that comes up is there's current strife between 2 of these nations. So like how you navigate that while your king is dead, like there is a national crisis within your own border, but you have to navigate these tumultuous neighbors as well. So that's really fun. That has actually been one of like my favorite sort of subplots to write because it plays a really big role later on in the story. And so there is there are other countries, other like cultures and stuff, and one that I think is going to be really fun for people to experience as they get further into A Night of Knives, because I've already written some of those scenes and they were some of the most fun to write.
Ah, so cool. Yeah, I've definitely got a couple that are going to come into play, because it's not a spoiler, but it's going to kind of turn into like, excuse me, I love an object. I love a tome, or like anyway, it's going to end up being kind of this like wild goose chase to find these things that they need help with, like to defeat the big bad, because obviously. And that takes them all over hill and dale, and that'll be really fun, because it's like, that's like also where I worry that I don't want to be too cliche at all, but I'm also like, I don't know, I have some like really cool concepts, but like, hopefully play out well. So
I think there's definitely room to do what you said like really well. That's that could be a really fun
on the hunt.
Yeah. Nicole says she is super excited to read our books in the future. Thank you, Nicole. That's always great to hear.
Nicole. Just gotta write them. You know what I mean? We just gotta write them, which tends to be the number one problem.
Yeah. I think it's just Nicole with us today, but Ash, is there anything you wanted to say to anybody as we're getting ready to wrap up here? And Nicole, did you have any questions or suggested topics? I believe this episode idea came from you. I think you said you wanted to hear more about our books. So if you have any other ideas, please let us know for sure.
Yeah, and you'll have to catch the first half of the episode when we put it out.
Yeah, yeah. If you're curious, you know where to find us on YouTube and Spotify and everything if you want to see what you missed in the first half.
Yeah. I think as we roll into season 3, I'm just want to say thanks to everybody, especially Nicole, our number one, who's kind of just like listened in and kept up with us. I know we are small and it's amongst a sea of other podcasts. There are too many choices to pick from. So for those who are watching on YouTube or listening, we really appreciate it. It's just two people wanting to talk about stuff, which is how it goes. But it's nice that there are people out there listening. It's like never want to shout into the void and then get nothing back. But people seem to be interested in what we have to say. So I'm excited. Hopefully we get some interviews in this next season. We're going to kind of mix it up. I think we're going to do some smaller, more just like one-off episodes. Get some people on, and that's it. Just want to say thanks.
Yeah. I'll just echo what Ash said because I think that's great. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Nicole, especially, you're like always here. It's amazing.
It's the best.
And to everyone who watches on YouTube, especially as well, that's like our number one spot for growth right now. So it's nice to when you upload and you see that 30, 40 people have listened to the episode or something like that. So it's always great to see that. So super excited for all those ideas we talked about that we have for season 3. Ash, like you said, lots of fun things in store.
Lots of fun. I'm really excited. Well, I hope everyone has an easy week. For all of us who are getting hit with the rain, stay dry. For those who already got hit with the rain, enjoy your sunshine.
I'll try to send this your way as well. So.
Yeah, please do. Just, I'm not looking forward to the rest of it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
Well,
it's good to see you, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ash.
All right.
See you guys.
Bye.